Hey everyone, welcome back to the kitchen. Happy fall, happy leaves coming down, happy weather getting colder. I know I've said that a bunch. I have a tendency to repeat myself. I know I say a lot. I'm excited about the weather changing. I'm excited that it's getting colder outside. And quite frankly, it's just because, well, it's excitement. I get excited this time of year. I love when the weather starts to change and it starts to get chilly. Past 2 days, it's been raining a lot, which is not that much fun, but it's nice and cold outside. Hope you all had a fabulous Halloween. If you went out trick-or-treating, fantastic. Hope you got some good stuff, or at least you're going through the kids' baskets and hope they got a lot of good stuff that you can hopefully share with them. I know that is what I am doing, but I digress. So this week, especially based on this weather, the fact that it's getting colder, the fact that I'm getting close to turning the heat on in the house, what I want is a big bowl of beef stew, curled up on the sofa, wife and I watching a movie, eating hot stew, maybe grandma watching the kids, and none of that's going to happen. Except, going to have a few bowls of nice hot stew. So this week, what we're doing today, what we're doing to kick off the cold weather coming and get everything started, is we are going to make a huge pot of chunky beef stew. It can be a time-consuming process only because, well, quite frankly, it takes time. To make this stew correctly, if you will, 2 hours, easy. But you're going to spend those 2 hours just checking and making sure that the simmer is going well. It's reducing slowly. You've got some great flavors in there. You might want to add, tweak, whatever. But that's really all you have to do to make a proper, fantastic flavored beef stew. And I've got everything laid out. We've already cut everything up and got it ready to go. We've got our beef and onion and potatoes and carrots and celery and some spices and our stock. A lot of recipes call for bouillon cubes. A lot of recipes call for beef stock. Some call for beef broth. In some cases, you may want to make your own, which is great. You can never beat freshly made, from scratch, stock or broth. Myself personally, I am a stock person. I like cooking with stock. I like the flavors that come with stock. You know, the difference between stock and broth. With stock, when you make a traditional stock, you're using the bones. So if you're making a chicken stock, you've got chicken bone in there or beef bones. You get a lot more flavor, in my opinion, and I like it. That's what I like to cook with. And to add an extra twist to this, while we're making a hearty beef stew, I've got beef and chicken stock because I love the contrast of flavor. I like how it lightens up the beef and it adds a little twang with the chicken. And I just enjoy the flavors and it makes it fun and different. This is super easy. We're going to do it together. And there you go. Let's get started. Come check this out. So let's go ahead and get started doing this. First things first, biggest pot you got. Nice big Dutch oven if you have one. We're looking for depth. We're looking for space. Gotta let all this food have room to cook, have room to do its thing. Just a little bit of olive oil, not much, don't need a lot. And I'm going to drop in 2 cloves of finely minced garlic. And just let that get started. Nice and hot. Give it a minute or two. And while that's getting started, I'm throwing our onion in here. I took 1 whole Vidalia onion, just chopped it up into pieces. Nothing special, nothing pretty. But remember, we're making a chunky stew. And in order to do that, you need big pieces. So I just chopped it up into big pieces. I've said it in another video. I love using Vidalia onion. I love the soft, sweet undertone that it has. And you can get that sweetness out of it when you just cut it up. Unlike a lot of other onions that make your eyes immediately just start to water. Yeah, you're going to get some watery eyes cutting up a Vidalia onion, but they have a really sweet flavor, and I absolutely love them. I'm just going to let this start to get hot. let the onion start to cook a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and add our meat. So thus far, all we've done is garlic and onion with a little bit of olive oil. I'm going to introduce to that, I got 2 pounds of stew beef. And you can go to the store and it'll even say it. Cube stewed beef, stew beef. I like it because there's a great blend there of meat and fat. A lot of marbling. And normally, especially myself personally, I like leaner meat, but I don't want to make a stew with it, because if I was to take really lean meat and chop it all up myself and cook this with no fat, with no marbling, the meat just gets really tough and chewy. You want that fat. You want that marbling. So you hear the sizzling? Oh, I love sizzling. You want the marbling to help tenderize the meat, to help make everything nice and soft. So if you want to buy stewed meat, it's fantastic. You want to cut it up yourself. You get some nice, I don't know, big ribeyes and chop those up. That makes for some beautiful, beautiful stew. Let's go ahead and add our meat because it's hot. We've got some translucency with our onion. It's getting warm. The sizzle is obviously going. Those fragrances are already starting. Yeah. Let's add some meat. That is it right there. 2 pounds, all chopped up, ready to go. Big chunks. See? Big pieces. On purpose. I want a nice big chunky stew. Nice big chunky texture. Look at that. That is exactly what we want. Now we let this start to go. And I'm going to let this cook until this meat gets nice and brown. And if you notice, there's not much. There's not much in here as far as additions, seasonings. What I did was I took this meat and seasoned it ahead of time, and I've let it sit out for a little over an hour. Get it up to room temperature and let the flavors really start to marinate together. How fantastic does that look? So if you notice what I just said, not much here except for the onion, the garlic, and the meat. But what I did ahead of time, and you might see this in recipes and you may not, I choose to do it because I really want the flavor and I really want the meat to be nice and tender. I took all this meat, and if you don't, this is just a rule of thumb. If you don't cut it yourself, if you don't chop it up and prepare it for your stew all by yourself, take the meat that you do buy, dump it out in a bowl, and go through each piece. You don't want tendon in there. You don't want long strips of meat. You chop those up, carve the tendon out if you find it. You don't want too much fat, just hunks of fat just sitting around. You don't need much. You want to go through and inspect each piece because it's worth it. Remember, you're serving this for someone and you want it to not only look beautiful, but you also want it to taste beautiful, and it's got to be perfect all the way around. So I went through and I checked each piece. And after I did that, I threw about a tablespoon of olive oil on it, mixed it all together, and then I seasoned the meat. And I used the seasoning that I made that mostly consists of paprika, little chili powder, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper. Don't worry, I'm going to write it all down in the description. But I tossed all that in the meat, and then I let it sit out for a while. I want the meat to come up to room temperature because it cooks really well at room temperature, and I also kind of let it marinate in those flavors for a while. That'll help tenderize the meat. Salt is a great tenderizer. So if you buy meat tenderizers at the store, they've all got salt in them. It tenderizes meat really, really well. So I let it sit, let it get nice and tender, and then I introduce it in here in the heat. And as it's starting to brown, I'm going to go ahead and put in our stock. This is 4 cups of stock total. Like I said, I've got beef and chicken stock. So I basically did kind of a half and half, a little bit more beef than chicken to be fair, but you don't have to do that. Some people like to just use all beef stock. I like the flavor contrast. I like to stir things up a little bit. Now, that's it. For a while. I have the heat up high. I'm going to leave it up high because I want this to come to a nice boil. When it gets to a boil, I'm going to turn it down to a little below half, a little below medium, and let it have a strong simmer going. And I'm going to let it sit for an hour. And that's it for now. And here's why we're doing this in stages. I've said this in other videos. You want to season as you go. You should taste throughout the cooking process, especially when you're cooking up on the stove. You could take all the ingredients that you are going to put into your stew, dump it all in the pot, bring it up to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, and then let it go for a few hours. You could do that. But if you do it bit by bit and taste as you go, that right there is what ensures you're not going to overseason, you're not going to underseason, you're not going to have anything overpowering the other. It'll balance. And you can help it balance as it's cooking if you do a little bit at a time. So far, all we've done is the garlic, the onion, the meat that was pre-seasoned, and the stock. And that's it. We're going to let this go. We're going to let it go to a boil. Later, we'll come back and we're going to add our carrots and our celery and our potatoes and our seasonings. And then we're going to let that go for an hour. And we'll taste throughout. And we'll add some things throughout the way. But not much. Done. Cakewalk. How fantastic. Look at that steam. Whew. We are boiling. Yes, that is what we want. So right now, I'm going to reduce this heat down to just below medium. Give it a stir. Look at that. How beautiful is that? Now let's add a couple things. We are going to add our dried rosemary. We are going to add thyme and sage. Some fantastic flavors. We've got dried rosemary, some ground sage, some thyme. Get some lemony, minty flavors in there, some great fragrance. Oh, this is fantastic. Now, we're going to let this sit at a reduced heat, so a low boil, nice simmer, for about the next 45 minutes. And the only other piece that I'm going to introduce right now is a couple of tablespoons of tomato paste to really bring out some flavor. Oh, I love how good that looks. Oh, look at that. See how much reduction we have gotten? It's gone down. Turn the heat down really, really low so we just have a nice simmer, nice bubble going. This is a great, great spot to be. That's exactly how it should look with that tomato paste. All the seasonings in there. Oh, it's just cooking fantastically. So let's add some stuff. Before we start adding, one thing I want to do, this is a great time to do this, is like I said, to taste throughout. I really want to try this. I want to see what kind of flavor we're getting. Wah! Number one, oh, it's extremely hot, but man, is that good. I can taste the rosemary. I get some sage on the back. I'm going to just add a pinch, just a pinch. So a quarter of a teaspoon of salt, and that's all. I haven't added any salt before now, if you didn't notice. And here's a really important reason why. I did not make that stock that we put in here. The chicken stock, the beef stock, I didn't make it. I bought it. I bought a good one. I'm very particular about that kind of stuff. I'm reading ingredients. I'm looking for what's in it. I'm looking for what's not in it. I'm looking where it was made. I take a lot of time when I research things like stocks and broths and stuff that I'm not making myself. But I didn't make it myself, so I don't really know what the flavor profile of it is going to be as it cooks down. I tasted a little bit of it when I first got it, but not as it cooks. And I'm not sure exactly how much of everything they have in it is in there, between the salt and the pepper and the garlic and onion and paprika, and I think this one also had some basil, things like that. I don't know how much of it is in there, so I don't want to go just throwing in salt and pepper, especially salt and pepper, when I can't take it out if there's too much. So I tasted, it's good. I added just a little tiny bit more salt, so as it cooks some more, see how that flavor changes. Now let's add our veggies. Carrots and celery, and if you can see, I mean, nothing special, but I just cut them into really big chunks because I want nice big pieces. Otherwise, it's not a chunky stew. But I'm going to introduce this, and so that was what, 4 or 5 stalks of each peeled and chopped. And then I took russet potatoes. I love regular old russet bacon potatoes for mashed potatoes, all kinds of fun stuff. And they're great to cook with, great for soups, great for stews. This is 4 of them, 4 large ones, and I just chopped them into big chunks. And they were soaking for the whole time. So it's been at least an hour that they've been soaking after I peeled and chopped them in water. That keeps them from turning brown. So they have still a nice crisp feel. They're beautiful color. If I let them sit with no water, they just start to kind of get a brown coloring, and the texture starts to slightly soften. And I don't want that to happen too early, so I kept them in water. But I'm going to add these in now. And this is where you can potentially make a mess. Now, that is all we need to do for now. So I will turn the heat up just a little bit because I've had it really low. So I'm going to bring it back up to medium. Let the boil come back. And once I've got that good boil going, I'll turn it back down. And this is where we're really going to let thyme do its thing. Turn it low so there's a good simmer going. And let the veggies now cook. Let the potatoes get nice and soft. Let all the flavors soak in. This is what's going to take a while, and this is what's going to make it amazing. So we're going to let this sit for about the next hour, boil and cook. We'll check on it in a little while, do some tasting just to make sure we're in the right spot, and we're going to add one more thing. I'll show you what that is afterwards. So for now, since you've got all this time, go ahead and check the description. That's where you're going to find all the ingredients listed that I've put in this pot. That little button is going to be sticking right out below here that says subscribe in big letters. So hit that button, subscribe to this channel, especially if you want to see the last piece that we're going to add at the end to make it really good. And there we go. Let's get to boiling. Let's turn that heat down and simmer. We have come to it. We are down to the end. Not long now. Oh, just a few more minutes and this will be done. Probably give this another 10, 15 minutes. And the last thing we're going to add, one quick taste to make sure I'm right. But I've been tasting throughout just to watch these flavors. Oh, they've come together so well. I'm going to throw one more little thing in here. Brown sugar. I've got about 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar that I'm going to introduce and stir in. And this is going to balance everything out. Make sure that all the flavors have come together beautifully. There's no acidic aftertones at all. Oh, just a nice smooth finish. Brown sugar, oh, such good, great stuff, especially for cooking something like this. Give a little caramelization in there. Beautiful flavors to finish. I'm going to let this sit for just a couple more minutes and then plate this up in just under 2 hours. Look what we produced. That is going to taste so good. Done. Oh, could not be more fantastic than a cold night with a big pot of stew. Oh, how can you not love this? I will say this, when you're at the end, it's been 2 hours. 2 hours this has been simmering on the stove and cooking down and flavors just coming together. The number one thing to look for at the end, I can tell just by looking at it. I tried it, but just by looking at it, once you have that nice soft texture with those potatoes, this is ready to eat. We slow cooked that meat a long time ago. We needed these veggies to cook down and soak some of this in, and it did, and it's fantastic. So many fun ways to serve something like this, to impress people with something like this. For example, if I was bringing this to a group of friends or family or serving it up to people, I would take it out of this pot, put it into something smaller, something that's fresh and clean and has a gorgeous look to it. After it's been cooking for a while, you'll lose some of the beauty that is a meal like this. But just in the bowl by itself, oh, with a nice big ladle, look at this. And by the way, while I love this ladle that I have, everyone knows I'm a big stickler for my kitchen gadgets. I had a gorgeous olive wood ladle. It technically wasn't mine. It belonged to my wife. It was beautiful, and I wanted to use it today because I love it, and I just found out that it broke. How does that happen? Olive wood. If you don't know anything about olive wood, it's a beautiful wood. It makes fantastic kitchen tools. It's gorgeous. It's not cheap. We had one. I loved it, and it snapped. I mean, come on. I mean, I deserve it, I guess, because the reason why we have that gorgeous olive wood ladle is because I might have used my wife's olive wood spoon years ago to stir paint. I didn't know any better. You know, a spoon's a spoon. So don't do that. Don't make that mistake. But that's how we got it, and now I've lost it. But that's okay. I love this ladle. And look at this bowl of stew. I don't want to digress too far, but look how this comes out. It's so gorgeous in a nice white bowl. And let's add one more thing just for the aesthetic, just to give it that extra little bit. Nice fresh sprig of rosemary, and your color is now complete. How amazing did that come out? Look at that color sitting in the bowl like that with the rosemary, those flavors, those smells. It's gorgeous. And that is it. We are done. I am so excited. Sit down on a nice cold night like it is, whether it's in front of the television, which would be amazing, or at the table with a group of people. A fantastic bowl of stew like this, a nice chunky beef stew, and nothing complements a stew better than a fresh loaf of baked beer bread. Does that scream a fall night or what? I cannot wait to try this. I cannot wait for you all to try this. Have fun making something like this. Stews and soups, you make them your own with the flavors that you want to add and change to what you saw me put in. Find other recipes, tweak them however you want. It's so much fun to do. Yeah, it takes a few hours, but you can bake a loaf of bread while you're waiting. Easy and fun. Folks, have a great week. We'll see you soon. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Share it with all your friends. Leave me a comment below. Let me know how it comes out. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.